All right. So in our last lecture, we took a look at how the tree view could be inherited and extended, and then we did some exercises of where we did some repetition that we had done in previous lectures, but hopefully it helped you understand a little bit better and get a little more comfortable with some of these basics. So now we want to take and add these same fields to our forms. And so, for example, if I'm on a product here, we need to be able to edit it and have it on this form too. We can't just have it in our tree view, especially for the fact that we can't even change the serving size. So let's go ahead and see how we would add this to the form view. Now, if you're really ambitious, you might already be able to go through and do this yourself. Because we've already done it with the tree view, and our process is going to be the same. So let's begin by going back and opening up our view here, and this will be about the last time that we go with using Nano for our editor. We're just using it for now, so anybody without having fancy IDEs or any basic IDE for that matter can use Nano to edit. And it's good to be able to use some of these really basic command line tools that might be all you have available to you on a headless server, depending on the security. So let's go ahead and now remember that each record can have its own definition. So you can have as many of these records as you want, and really you just want to remember, if you're getting hundreds of views inside of a single file, you're going to want to start thinking about breaking things up and being more organized about it. But for what we're doing, we want to have an updated form view now that has these new fields on it for our diet fax application. So some of this is very similar. So we can, even inside of this simple Nano, select this like this and do a copy. And as long as we move this to where we need to go, we can do a paste. Oh, I thought, yeah, there it did. Yeah, so it did do it. And let's just change this from tree to form. So copying and pasting is very helpful. It keeps you from making errors. And we know that this inherit ID is not going to be right because this is for the tree view. Now we could guess and say, okay, it's probably the form view. It probably is. I think it is, actually. But we can double check by going over here, up here, pick our form view, and we were wrong. It's actually based on the product template only form view. So this is kind of a specialized view. Let's copy it here, go back to our Nano, and oops, I didn't mean to do that. Cancel, yeah. I accidentally hit it in the wrong key. I'm gonna get rid of this and tell it to paste it back in again from our clipboard from there. So I just want to make absolutely sure we're basing this on the right view. So it's inheriting now from the form view. We named it form view here. We know product template stays the same, and as we've discussed, this always stays the same. And you can start to see the value of the copy and paste here. Now, we don't want to do this after the category ID. Let's do it after the standard price field. We'll drop it down here for now. So here's where cost is, which I can see the field is actually named standard price. Again, it's really helpful to use this debug mode to get your bearings about you. So standard price is where we want this to be. Oops. Made it worse. There we go. We'll say standard price. And we can put it after. So remember how we have before or after. We can do it after. And now we can just leave these because they're going to be just fine in the form view. Let's go ahead and see if that works. Control O. I didn't really double check it real close, so hopefully I did it right. But if not, it'll tell me, right? So I restart the server. No errors. I'm really excited to get past this because this is where I know it's processing the view, and if something goes wrong, it'll probably happen there. And so now let's look at our products. We'll look at the list. There's our calories, our serving size last updated. Click on the form. And, look, we don't have our labels. Okay, so we're missing labels here on these. And that has to do with probably being out of the group or something else silly. We can tell it's the right data, because there's the date and there's the other. So we're missing something that we needed. So let's try, and again, I didn't expect that. This just caught me off guard. So I'm going to try to put it after the barcode and see if we have the same result. So I just go back to field name, barcode, and I'm just specifying them here. I'm kind of surprised I didn't get those labels over there. I'm putting them after barcode this time. So what I'm anticipating is that there's a group that's ended, and that's a kind of a more advanced concept of how to lay out forms. So we're just going to move them under barcode. And sometimes, when you're first developing and doing these things, don't get obsessed sometimes with trying to get it perfect. You want functional. And, it did do what I expected. So notice how we got calories, serving size, and last update. We got the labels here, but we didn't get the labels over there. Well, what that means is that in the architecture, there's groupings of these items. So we're going to try to fix it, just because sometimes that's just what you want to do. Let's go back to, we had the standard price there, I think it was. Okay, standard price. This one is called list price. So let's put it under list price. So we're just moving it around to learn a little bit more about positioning in the forms. And then we'll see if we get the labels here, which I expect we would. Why would I expect that? Because it's in between the two. I'm telling it to put it in between them, and I think there'll be a grouping that'll hold them together. And so let's go off. Oops, I didn't want to open up LibreOffice. And click on the form. And I was right. Notice how we got our labels. But if I drop them after standard price, watch what happens. And these are the little things that about development that I would strongly encourage people, to not get too obsessed over something like this. If it's not showing up, as you'll see, we lose our labels. And so somebody might go, all is ruined. Well, I know why this is, and so I'm going to show you the little trick right now, just because we happen to be here. And that's that what's happened is that there's no groupings of these fields, and so it really doesn't know how to handle them. So if I put a group, I think this is all I have to do. I might be wrong. But if I put this group here, this is going to tell Odoo that these should obey the format and the layout of the way it expects things in views. So it's grouping these together, and now they'll hopefully just fall underneath that, which we'll soon see. So no error. It knows hopefully what I'm talking about. And if I hit products, back on there, okay, it made a group, but you can see my hypothesis why it was what it was, and now we have them sitting over here because it's being very literal after standard price. It's like, got them here. Regardless, we're not going to worry about this. Is again an example of why you wouldn't want to get too wrapped up in worrying about this kind of layout when you have more important priorities. And my important priorities are not making layout more complicated. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the groups back out here, and we'll leave that for an exercise for you guys who wants to try and figure that out, or you're going to learn much more complex things that'll make this seem irrelevant. So we'll just make sure that we can do what we need to do. We'll put it in under was it list price? That was one, wasn't it? We can just put it in there. I think that's what it was called. And there we are. We've got our calories, our serving, our last updated. We learned how to move it around and pretty much put it wherever we wanted it. We did see that there was an instance where we lose our labels if we tried to add it at the end. But for our purposes and where we're trying to go with this, we're going to worry about functionality and usability of the specifics of why that was. We started to see that they weren't inside a group, so it hid the labels. But then we also saw that the group didn't appear where we wanted it. That's something that we'll look at in more advanced videos down the road. But for now, as you can see, we've got our views and our fields on our form. We've also got them on our tree views, and so we're now pretty much seeing where we were in terms of the custom videos when we saw earlier how to customize through the the debug menu. We're learning how to do that through code. Again, if you're new to programming, you'll want to spend a little more time looking at this. But as you saw how quickly we took our tree view and then turned it into the form view, by a lot of this stuff you can do with copying and pasting and looking at some of the other modules in Odoo. So this kind of wraps up the very beginning Odoo application section where you make your first Odoo application where you change models and you change views. Now what we're going to do is we do have a Odoo, a Python primer, and that section is primarily for people that are new to Python. If you're new to Python, you probably do want to do the Python primer section and learn a little bit more about some of the basics of Python, and it'll help maybe make even what you've seen so far a little clearer. If you already know Python real well, you can skip that section. And then what we'll do in the following sections is look into creating a better editing environment, a better development environment, so you can develop Odoo applications more quickly, debug them faster, and then you got a better editor for modifying your data than just the one here in the terminal. So there's a lot more to learn, but this was a big section, getting through making your first Odoo application, changing the models, adding models, inheritance, and then modifying views and customizing them. So a good starting point. And if you're new to Python, check out the next section. Otherwise, you can skip and go right on into our more advanced application development.